Uh, okay, we are live, and we have with us head football coach at Pine Lake, Austin Trotter. I am pronouncing your last name correctly, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and Jim, if you don't know, that's Jim West below you, and below him is Anthony Perkins. And um, so, first thing I want to do is talk with you about. So, last week I was going to come up to watch you guys play, and unfortunately, you had a situation with COVID come up, and I don't think a lot of people understand what the impacts are for that. Um, could you were kind of explaining some of it? Could you kind of go down the list as much as you'd like, and just kind of tell us what kind of impact that has? We know it knocks a game out, but what kind of disruption is that, and what kind of work is it for you to maintain and keep? You were talking about the contact tracing.
Yeah, so for us, I got the phone call Friday right around lunchtime, I believe it was, and we'd had an exposure in our program. And of course, that meant, game day. Unfortunately, we had to make the tough decision to go ahead and cancel that game. For us, it was a home game, so that's lost gate revenue, concessions, all that. But on top of that, that was it was 9/10, and we had several special things planned for that night in remembrance of 9/11. We're also going to honor military and first responders, and retired law enforcement. That was special to me. I wanted to be able to do that, and unfortunately, we had to cancel all of that. And we did so because we wanted to make sure that we kept our players safe, we kept our staff safe, we kept their families safe, but also we didn't want to risk, exposing our opponent's star mount. I would feel terrible as a head coach if one of our players, we didn't do everything that we needed to do to keep everybody safe, and we exposed them, and then they had to sit out and go through all of this as well. So once that decision was made, of course, we got to contact officials, contact the state, and let everybody know that's going on, let the other team know. I actually started trying to find them an opponent. I felt bad that they were losing a game. I was trying to find them someone to either play that day or on their bye week. Luckily, they were able to find someone, so they're not out of game. We are, but just because we don't have our bye week was week 1, so we don't have a chance to make up that game. And then starts the hard part, the administrative part of this. We have to start contact tracing. Who is this individual around? And it's a 15-minute time frame, and so you got to start taking into account everything that comes with practice. Guys getting dressed, guys going through warm-ups, being around different guys in drills, special teams, offense, defense. You really got to sit there, and I'm making phone calls and talking to different coaches. Okay, who all was this person around? And once you do that, then I have to pass that information on to our administration, and then they take it and contact those individuals, and that leads into the contact tracing process, which there's a time frame to get tested, and that's also part of why we had to go ahead and cancel the game, because there wasn't enough time. Because again, we didn't find out until Friday. The individual found out Friday, and it was just because they had symptoms started that morning. So there was no lead up to it that we could have prepared or done differently. So now you have to wait, 3 to 5 days after exposure to test, and then that pushes you into this week and trying to get all of that done. Unfortunately for us, it's caused us to have to postpone this Friday's game. With it being a conference opponent, we're going to reschedule it for about 2 weeks, I believe, down the road on a Tuesday night, just so we can make sure we get that game. But yeah, it causes a lot. Now all these players, they're either getting tested or they're quarantining, so now they're having to sit out of school, and any coaches that may have been exposed are having to, again, your vaccination status can affect this. If you test positive or negative, obviously it changes it, but there's a lot of moving parts to it, and trying to figure out who you have, who you don't have. So this week we have suspended team activities so that we can make sure that we are doing everything that we can to ensure the safety of our players, our staff, their families. and to make sure that we can get through this and that we don't have any additional spread. So moving forward, hopefully, fingers crossed, we can finish out the rest of the season incident free. But again, it's like I told our players even back in the spring, guys, this is the reality of the world that we're in right now. It's very possible that, you know, one of us gets exposed or an opponent of ours gets exposed. If that happens, it happens. We deal with it. We move forward. There's no sense of getting upset and frustrated. It's just, you know, it doesn't change the outcome. So we just have to find the best path forward. But with that said, don't go looking for it. You know, be smart with what you're doing. Make sure that you're doing everything that you need to do to reduce your chance of being exposed. But again, we all have, you know, going to the grocery store, we have a risk of getting exposed. Everybody has families that, you know, it could be outside of their control. My wife's a nurse. She's around it all the time. So it's one of those deals where, unfortunately, it's the world that we're living in. It's the things that we're dealing with. We got lucky this spring that we didn't have it happen. We got lucky the first couple of weeks. But there's other schools in the area that have missed 2-3 weeks in a row because of it, and not on their end, on their opponent's end. So again, anything we can do to kind of mitigate it, we try to. But you know, really, it's just luck of the draw at this point.
Sorry I didn't organize this a little bit better. This green is really bothering me, and I've been sitting here trying to adjust that. But a couple of things that you said, and one of the things that we talked just briefly about last week, and you brought it up, you know, conference game, you're going to reschedule it. How do you feel if it's a situation where, oh gosh, you know, the team has to go into hard quarantine and maybe playing another conference opponent that might be open just to get games in? How do you feel about that, playing? Because it's a little bit easier in non-conference to go out and maybe hunt and find somebody. But, you know, once you get into conference play, a lot of us are thinking, you know, there should be certain number of conference games, et cetera, that are played. And how do you feel about playing another conference opponent 2 times?
If that's what you need to do, I don't know how I feel about playing, the same opponent twice. I mean, I get getting the conference games in, but like with what we're doing, we're going to play 3 games in 7 days to make sure that we're getting our conference game in, and we're playing it on a Tuesday night. That way we have a Saturday and a Monday before that game, and then a Wednesday and a Thursday before the Friday game. So we have a little bit of time to get ready for our opponent. So again, playing, you know, the same opponent twice to get the number of games in, I mean, I guess if that's what you have to do, but if you're playing them twice, then, you know, it's both of y'all had to have a game canceled. So if that's the case, on the week that you were supposed to play each other, why can't you play your original opponents? If that's how it has to happen, you need to move the games around. That's fine. So, you know, let's say like we're supposed to play Mountain Island this week, and we can't, and 2 other teams couldn't play each other because one of them, and they end up playing. There's a week that you could just move the schedule around so that you still play the teams that you should have played.
Gotcha. Jim, you got any questions for him? I can't hear you, Jim. You must be on mute.
Okay, now can you hear me?
There you go.
Gotcha.
All right. I was going to say I don't really have any questions, just a couple of comments, and also just want to thank you for all that you do for our kids down in Pine Lake Prep. I know that coaching is a ministry. It's not ego driven. It's a ministry driven situation, and when you have situations like COVID or pandemic, it's more, you take on a more paternalistic approach. Through the last 2 years, I guess the 2020-21 season and the 21 season, I was going to ask you, do you think coaching is going to ever get back to what it was pre-pandemic, where you don't have to worry quite as much about the protocols and everything, or do you think this is the new normal for all coaches?
I think coaching and football in general is going to mimic everyday society. If our society gets back to where this is no longer a daily concern, and we move past this and move beyond this, then yeah, football's going to fall right in line. But as long as this is a general, societal issue that we're facing, it's definitely going to impact high school sports.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, and I like what you say. You told your kids. Unfortunately, there's some control we have, and that control is really of ourselves and maybe the situations we put ourselves in to maybe contacting. But if somebody comes up with a virus, there's not, you not any sense in getting mad about it. That's not going to change anything. Protocols are in place for how we have to do things. That's not going to change. So we just have to, unfortunately, it's not a great thing, but we have to fall in line with what we're set to do. Just like your drills that you have for what you do on Mondays and Tuesdays and Wednesdays, you've got a nice schedule of how everything goes about. And well, when the virus comes up, there's a certain protocol that has to be followed.
Yeah, I mean, as coaches, we're all kind of control freaks. Things in a nice systematic way, and we have ways of doing things. And when things get outside of that, it causes problems. And my wife will tell you, she said she was kind of shocked with that. I wasn't more upset than I was, and I was just frustrated. I knew our guys had worked really hard in practice this week, and I was frustrated we weren't getting a chance to get on the field. But yeah, it's out of our hands. It's one of those things where you don't have control over this, and until then, there's no sense in getting upset and angry. There's nothing you can do about it. You just have to follow the protocols and work through it. And once that's done, hopefully this coming Monday, we'll be back on the field ready to go like a normal week.
So, guys, I just figured something out, but it's not for my green screen. It's like I can put something up behind everybody. Let's shift away from the virus. We could talk all day and all night, and about what's happening, et cetera. But what I'd like to do is shift gears and get into what type of school you are. Now, a lot of people have misconceptions about actually everything, what parochial schools are, private schools, charter schools, and public schools. And so I'd like for you to first, and I've done this before. I did this with Robert Washington over at Mountain Island. I'd like for you to tell us about what your school is.
Okay. So I will say this, when it comes to, kind of explaining our school and just from my standpoint of it, I've coached at every possible situation in the state in high school football. I've coached at private schools. I've coached at traditional public. I've coached at charters, 1A, 2A, 3A, 4A level, IMEC to semi-rural conferences. Every one of those has its advantages, and every one of them has its disadvantages. So I know a lot of times charter schools take a bad rap, and we get hit constantly and pounded constantly by people who don't understand exactly how it works. People think we're a private school or that we can just pull in anybody we want to, and honestly, that's so far from reality that I'm glad you've given us a chance to kind of help with some of those misconceptions. So for us, we are a K-12 school. I coach at Pine Lake. My daughter attends a different charter school in the area. So I see it from as an employee and as a parent on both sides of this. It is we still receive public money, but it's only for educational purposes. We don't receive any dollars for, building and ground stuff. So financially, we receive less money than a traditional school does. But as far as the way that it works, and this is where I think most people have a misconception, this is where most of the time that the issues occur, is how do you get into a charter school? How does someone get admitted? How does someone enroll? And this is where, we can talk about advantages, disadvantages. With a charter school, we are bound by law that we have to have a lottery for enrollment. So anyone who wishes to enroll in the school will submit an application by whatever the deadline is. Typically ours, I think, is in January sometime. Okay. After all of those have been submitted, everybody is put into the system, and a computer program will randomly assign each person in each grade level a number, 1 through however many are on the list. If we have available seats in that grade level, we're bound by law to go straight down that roster that the computer program created for us. So let's say there's some Power 5 5-star kid that wants to come to Pine Lake, and he's number 37 on the list as a junior, and we have 3 junior spots. Well, guess what? I can't say, hey, I want that kid, move him up here to one of these 3 spots, because we have to submit to the state where we have asked and been declined by every single person on that list until we get to, and we show where people enrolled. So for that person to get in, 35 people in front of them would have to decline, and we would have to have proof of that they declined in order for that person to then be offered to be enrolled. So the people who think that anybody who wants to can get into a charter school is far from the truth. Like with my daughter, we got lucky to get her in kindergarten. When we enrolled her, or when we applied for the lottery, she had number 111. There were 100 students being accepted into kindergarten. So she was 11th on the wait list. So there had to be 11 kids that got initially selected that turned it down for her to get in. We got lucky that happened. A good friend of ours had also put their daughter in the lottery system, and they were number 847. Okay. That's not going to happen. All right. And that's where people also misunderstand. We can't just bring people in. We have to have a seat for them. You know, we're restricted on the number of seats that we have. So if the seat's not there, we can't offer people. And again, we're bound by that list that has to be submitted to the state. It's all, you know, for anyone to be able, for them to be able to double check to make sure that we're doing things the way that we're supposed to do them. So yeah, is that an advantage or a disadvantage? Some people think it's an advantage because you don't have to move. You can apply and you can go there. Okay, that's true. But if somebody really wants to attend this school for whatever reason, athletics, academics, you know, arts, whatever it is that the person wants to go to school there, unlike a traditional public school, all you have to do is just move into their geographical boundaries, and now you're automatically going to that school. Now you have to get into a lottery system and basically win the lottery. Hopefully that there's enough seats available and that your name is high enough on that roster in order to be able to get in. And is that an advantage or not? It's just a different way of doing things. So I know people get frustrated by that, you know, somebody may live in this area and goes to this school, or, you know, a charter school is in a metro area but is playing 1 or 2A sports. Yeah, there's a larger population to draw from, but you're still only dealing with the same number of students, and it's not like you can go out and grab whoever you want to fill those spots. It has to be through the lottery system, and you know, there's no way to change the outcome of that without violating state law. And if you do that, then the whole school can get shut down for that. And I don't think there's a single person that's going to risk shutting down a school for whatever reason to get a student into the school. No one's going to do that.
Right, to pick up. Now, you are bound though by a certain radius, right?
It's
30. Is it 30?
25 miles.
25 miles.
25-mile radius.
Yeah, so it's not just anywhere.
And no one outside of the state is allowed to come as well. So let's say we were right along the South Carolina border, we couldn't pull somebody from Rock Hill. You know, we're still bound by 25-mile radius and North Carolina.
Because you're a North Carolina public school, right?
Correct.
That's right. And that's one of the things that I don't think people understand. They kind of classify charter schools as private schools. And nothing's further from the truth, right?
Trust me. It's, yeah. And having been out of private school, you know, again, with them, anyone who wants to attend that school can, as long as they pay the tuition. You know,
anywhere. Yeah,
and they can come in from anywhere. There are athletes and there are students at private schools in Charlotte who live in South Carolina. and who were playing for them on Friday nights. And that because that's the rules that they have and that's what they're bound by. For us, that's not the case. So I mean, the downside to a private school is you have to pay tuition. And not everybody can afford to do that. So like I said, every one of them has its advantages and disadvantages. Starters, yeah, you don't have to move, but you also just can't move and go to a school that you want to, like you could in a traditional public school.
Got a quick question for you, Coach, and this is just from my own knowledge. Transportation, bus transportation, how does that work, or does it work for private schools? I was thinking or not private schools, the charter schools. My fault. With charter schools, do they offer it I know in Orange County, it's been probably 10 years ago, I know that they offered certain level of transportation. I don't know if that's the case with Pine Lake Prep or not.
So it depends on the school. Some offer, we have, I'm trying to think the best way to put it, like a hub, a CVS in Huntersville's parking lot. We'll have an afternoon and a shuttle, and a morning shuttle that will take students there and drop, and their parents can pick them up there. We don't go door to door like a traditional school bus or traditional school does, but we have shuttle to locations. That just alleviates for us the traffic issue because we have one entrance, one exit for all three schools, K through 12. So it's a nightmare at times with traffic. So by doing that, we're able to alleviate a lot of that traffic issue. At other schools, they don't have that. They may have a shuttle between, like with my daughter's school, the elementary school was not on the same campus as the middle and high school. So if you have a student in middle and a student in elementary school, you can drop them both off at the middle school, and they would take the shuttle then to the elementary school. But as far as traditional, dropping you off at your house or at the top of the road, we don't have that.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anthony, you have any questions or comments?
Well, I do, but it's sort of going back to COVID, but it's not really COVID. It's wondering about what the sense of urgency is with high school coaches to fill the schedule on. I know that football primarily funds the rest of the athletic programs at the schools.
Yeah, I mean, it is. And I know from the spring, having reduced capacity for spectators, some athletic budgets have taken a huge hit. They're obviously, some of those schools are used to having 10, 20,000 people show up to them on a Friday night.
Right.
I wish we had that many, but, we don't. But that's a huge part of their budget. And having those games is definitely a part of it. For us, it was a concern for us having to cancel the game Friday night, but it obviously was nowhere in consideration when it came to as far as protecting our players and staff and the other team. But again, that's one of the downsides to having to cancel a game. Now that's lost gate revenue that can go to help the non-revenue sports who rely on football and basketball in some areas to help fund those sports. Yeah, so trying to get a full schedule is really important. That's why for me it was having a week 1 bye week really kind of put us at a disadvantage because we didn't have that built-in week that we could fill a game in with. So
how long can you stay with us?
Coach, you got me for a while. I'm good.
All right, well, good, because we're going to talk about some other things, and I think it'd be great. Anthony keeps popping in and out there. So yeah, let's shift just a little bit. Let's talk about maybe what we're going to do this Friday night. So a good question as far as where people might be going. So, Coach, I'm going to ask you. You don't have a game, so are you going to go see a game? You're going to watch NFHS on TV? What you going to do?
Well, I've thought about going to a game. There's a couple of local conference games that I could go to and watch. And then, I started thinking, we're going at least 10. And, that was the plan, to go at least 10 and hopefully some playoff weeks straight. So I'm probably going to take a night off take the football hat off and spend it with my wife and girls. give them some attention, because obviously we know coaching takes up so much of our time and time away. So if I have an available night that I hadn't planned on having, I'm gonna try to spend it with them and take advantage of it that way.
The guy from the back with the green background says it's a good move. Jim, what have you picked where you're going to go to this week?
Well, I was going to go to I think Jordan over in Durham. They were playing Conley. Unfortunately, one of my friends' mother passed away, and I'm going to go to a memorial service at over Yates Baptist Church in Durham on Friday. So I'm going to be out of action, but I was planning to do something maybe in Orange County, but Dale, I'll talk a little bit more about Orange County in the future later on tonight. Some big things happening here.
Yeah, we will after. That'd be a good idea to just go down. Anthony, what's your Friday night going to look like this week? Well, I don't know if you can hear us, Anthony.
Well,
Anthony,
first off,
go ahead.
My in and out, I'm only catching about every 5 weeks. Anyway, my granddaughters go to Stuart Kramer. Since they're playing right here in the backyard, playing South Point this Friday night, I'm going to probably go watch South Point. Last week I went to Shelby and South Point. A pretty good game. That would be a pretty good game anyway.
Well, I haven't made up my mind. A team that I took a liking to 2 years ago was sitting down here at Catawba Ridge and across the border, and they play South Mecklenburg, who I saw this past Friday night. And let me see if I can bring this up. I want you guys to take a look at this, because I just thought this was a fantastic play. Oh, yeah. I like that play because that kid jumped out of the stadium.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
He played his position well, and he jumped out of the stadium to get the ball. One of the better plays I've seen this year. So I'm not sure yet. I'm think that's an interesting game. I'm also somewhat considering West Charlotte and Mallard Creek are playing, and of course on Tuesday nights I do the Talking Preps thing, and Coach Grice is at Mallard Creek and Griner's at West Charlotte. So that might be could be an interesting ball game to tell us where West Charlotte is. Mallard Creek's not the Mallard Creek of 3-4 years ago, but there's still a pretty good program. So,
Dill,
yeah.
I've been to 4 games so far, and the away team has won all 4 games. And I think if I was a home coach and they saw me, I'd probably just send my security out to get me to leave. But
protocol.
Yeah, protocol. Get him out of there. That West guy, he's a jinx.
Yeah, Coach Evans has done great down at South Mex so far, man. So I'm curious to see how because Catawba Ridge has got a really, really good quarterback. Kids getting national offers. So I'm curious to kind of see how they do against them. And then that Grice and Griner matchup will be a good one.
Right.
Grinder's doing a good job over there at West Charlotte, and Grice and him going back and forth on Tuesday night, it kind of be good to listen to.
Yeah, that kid at Catawba Ridge is #1 recruit in his class, all positions.
Wow.
So that's pretty awesome talent. But Catawba Ridge, I saw them play Stuart Kramer 2 years ago, and I know several of the coaches over at Catawba Ridge. And then after the game, I had a talk with them. I was like, man, you guys, this was their first year, about how great they looked. And most of the kids that played that night were sophomores.
Wow.
So, yeah, I figured, and this is, we're kind of rolling into that point. I figured that when those kids became seniors, which would be this year, that program's going to do very well. And so I think that's a good program, and I would probably rate that I think they would be favored over South Mecklenburg, but I'm going to tell you, Joe's doing a fantastic job.
Yeah, he's done a great job getting down there. I was actually talking to another coach about South Meck today, and how, it's been a while since they've been consistently, a contender, and he's got them on the right path. It
was maybe 4 or 5 years ago when they were a contender in the South Meck 8. I've been to 2 games. I've watched a bunch on NFHS, but I've been to 2 games. I went to the West Charlotte Harding game. Actually 3 games, excuse me, because I saw Providence and Mallard Creek, and then South Meck and Cuthbertson. And I'm going to tell you, South Meck's the best team I saw out of all that bunch. And the things about South Meck, it's not just the athletes. They've got some great athletes. They're not loaded with athletes. The problem, and I see this everywhere, is we've got less kids playing ball.
Yeah.
And I know that a lot of it has to do with the concussion stuff, and, parents are being more. So their numbers are down, but South Mecklenburg's had us struggled with numbers for about a decade now. They've really struggled with numbers, but you set aside having, a bunch of D1 recruits, et cetera. Hey, they are, as a team, I've not seen a team as focused. The kids are definitely a family. There's not a lot of chit chat, non-game related, stuff going on the sideline. I do go down on the sidelines, and because one of the things I like to gauge is you get a better feel. You can watch a game and say, I know you watch a game on film, you see certain things. But if you were to see that game in person, you learn a little bit more about that team by watching them in person versus, just on film. And the things that I see out of South Meck, just that whole team concept of what you want a team to be, Joe has really molded those kids into that belief. And of course, he calls it the standard, and the kids have bought into it. A couple of parents, so it's real interesting. I was testing out some YouTube live streaming the other night, and I got one viewer come on, because I don't really do a lot of stuff on YouTube. And one viewer came on. So I asked the viewer to post who he was, and turned out it was Moss's father that came on. So I had a nice little chat with him about what's going on at South Meck. So that could be I think that could be a more defining game for South Meck than it is Catawba Ridge. South Meck wins that ball game. I really believe that should, as a team, that should let them know, though they already should know where they're at, but that'll give them a good gauge that, hey, you guys are not just good, you're very good.
Right.
So I hadn't decided yet, but that's one of the games I'm interested in. Jim, you brought up Orange County, and there was a vote the other night about and really I want to phrase this around. This kind of goes back to COVID, but I want to phrase this around what they did, and what might other LEAs do. in the future. I think what we're seeing out of some of the LEAs with, CMS and Union County, with what we're seeing with mask mandates and number of people that can be in stadiums, et cetera. I think those are kind of indicators of what's to come. So why don't you, I'm going to let you jump in first and kind of break down what you know about what happened with the school board at Orange County the other night first.
Okay. First thing, let me define what Orange County school systems are. It's not the Chapel Hill Carrboro school system. That's a separate system. And there's two high schools in Orange County school system. Cedar Ridge, who's not playing a varsity schedule this year. They're just doing JV. And then you have Orange High School, and you got 3 middle schools, and you got 7 elementary schools. And at one time, the Orange County Superintendent's office, they were talking about shutting down the program or shutting down all contact sports for, I think, what they call or the highest risk sports for contracting COVID down for at least 2 weeks. At least through September 30th. And so anyway, it had to do with I think it was the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services about doing the contact tracing, which I'm a big believer in. I think it's always good to know how it's being spread. And it's not to punish anybody, but it's more about learning how to strengthen up our safeguards. If we need to do something to strengthen up a safeguard, that's what you need to do. And they found, I think, 45% of the transmissions in K through 12 had to do with athletics in some form or fashion, either through the actual playing the sport or in the stands. And that's where the rubber kind of met the road. So I listened to it. The meeting started at 6:30, didn't end until about 10:20. The first hour and a half, it was, blah, 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 blah. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about that. Let's bore everybody. And then it got to the public comment session. And there's 3 ways to communicate. So the first one is through emotional, where you yell at everybody, tell them, how stupid they are, they believe something and all this other stuff. Second way is powers. Like, if you do this, I'll make sure you'll never be able to be elected dog catcher ever again. And then the third way is through logic. You had some power, not much, a little bit of power, a little bit of logic here and there. I think there was maybe 2 or 3 speakers that had a pretty good logical argument. And about 20 of them, the vast majority were emotional. It's like, oh, I cannot believe you're doing this. These kids have suffered enough. And then they made up their own facts saying, this is nothing more than an overblown flu. The COVID is not as contagious as the flu. Other things about how we need to do herd immunity. And then there was some that were just, they were just so socially insensitive. You're picking on a certain sect of the community that they believe are not being vaccinated as much as the others, and then blaming that community for having any type of extra safeguards applied, like reduction of the season. So the school board listened to it, and they made the right decision on this. They said, you know what we're going to do? We're going to close down the concessions. This is serious enough. We're going to lead by example. We're going to close down the concessions. We are going to require the fans to actually wear masks and socially distance. I've been to an Orange game, the beginning of the season. I think it was the second game of the season, and there was no social distancing. And I could probably count, maybe 10 people that were wearing masks in the stands. But there was no social distancing. The kids were all like sardines, and something had to happen on that. They also discussed in the meeting that there were some breaches of protocol within the school where some of the kids would gather around and would not be wearing masks. And that was a serious enough issue that they had to do something about it. The one thing that a lot of people are going to complain about, and I understand completely about the budgets, the school budgets. I'm a CPA. I know how important it is to bring in the money. At the same time, I also have a heart, and I believe that you have to do drastic things during drastic times. They're going to reduce the amount of people that can come into a game to 2 people per athletes. And that's where a lot of people are pretty upset about it. But I'm going to tell you right now, I have no problem whatsoever about that. They had their chance beforehand to do the right thing, do the proper safeguards. They didn't. And at this point, I do wonder if the other schools are going to say, you know what, I want to make sure our fans wear masks in the stadium. Masks do work. I don't care what anybody says. Masks do work. And there was some people talking about how it's dangerous to have it because it reduces the amount of oxygen in your into your body. They're just making up crap. And I don't mind if someone says, you know what, I want us to go to the games. If they're honest about it and say, you know, masks are not always fun, especially when it's hot, especially when it's raining, especially if you're wearing glasses, it fogs up. I can totally understand that. But they made up their own facts, these people talking. And as soon as you do that, I just discount it, you know. So anyway, I think you're going to see a lot of other schools around. They're going to observe what's in orange, and they're going to decide whether they're going to do it or not. I'm going to tell you right now, this is a very polarized situation. The rural schools are not going to do anything about it. I think Union County, Dale, if I remember right, they've didn't the school board vote against the contact tracing? I hope I misheard that. Is that correct, though?
They lowered the I've got to look. I've got to look.
From what I saw and read, they will no longer be contact tracing.
That's what kind of what I thought.
If someone is positive, or if someone has symptoms, they'll sit out. Even outside of athletics, just in general. If someone has symptoms, then they're going to quarantine, but no one around them will be contact traced. And if I'm not mistaken, Union County is mask optional as well. So
they're mask optional. Yes, exactly. Well, I wanted to make a couple of comments, Jim, about what you as you brought up. I can't put myself up there because I want to put my. Oh, I got to do it from this side. First of all, when we're talking about contact tracing, I don't know if you guys use the North Carolina slow COVID response app. If we're going to address the virus, I think we need to do all that we can. The mask thing is real funny, Jim, because as you're aware, my daughter's a pharmacist, and she wears a mask. Some of her days are 12-hour days, so she wears a mask, and she does not break for lunch. She does not take breaks. Pharmacists are man, it's a brutal job.
They're on their feet all the time too.
They're on their feet all the time. So she worked. When she starts working, she's solid work, never stops until time to get off, and she wears her mask the entire time. So this whole thing about you get oxygen cut down, et cetera, is baloney. But yeah. I hear it a lot. Anyhow, wearing masks. I'm big on wearing masks. I wear my mask. As I tell people, spit through a mask if you can. We get all this comment about the mask, and I did a lot of research on which masks to use. Actually, which masks I want to use. An N95 mask. They can still allow. Where the size of particle that can go through is still larger than what the virus is. But what people don't understand is the virus doesn't go by itself. It has to be attached to a droplet. And the droplets that you breathe out aren't that small. They're bigger.
You bring up a very good point because a lot of people don't include that droplet part. Thank you for bringing that up, Bill.
Well, it's the virus just can't go by, it can't fly. It doesn't have wings, and fly, out and work its way through the mask and out. It's got to attach itself to something, and that something is a droplet. And the size of your droplets vary. Your breath, as you're seeing when you wear the mask, and you're actually, if your glasses are fogging up a whole lot, you really don't have the mask probably sealed properly. That's a whole nother thing. Is I use masks that pull straps double so I can get nice and tight. And anyway, I think what we're going to see is that I'm not going to be shocked to see a school board here in North Carolina sometime this season, and if it's going to be football or basketball, is going to mandate vaccines. That's going to come to be, I think.
Well, that's another thing they talked about was whether to require vaccines to play.
Yeah.
And they said we're not going to do that at this point.
Right.
I think that's probably the right thing to do at this point. And I was telling you, Dale, you asked me that question, I think last week or the week before. If you can have good policy without playing good politics, but you can't have good government or good societal government if you don't have both. If you force that vaccine, you're going to have a reaction. For every action, there's an opposite, equal and opposite reaction. A lot of physics involved in this, and you'd have a lot of people, especially in the rural parts of the state, are very suspicious of governments. They're going to say, you know what, I'm going to pull my little Johnny or little Linda out of public school because I'm going to put them in an academy or private school or homeschool. I know that's going to be a situation.
Yeah, in physics, and I'm a physics guy. Yeah, there's an opposite and equal reaction. However, I think we're dealing with something. We're not dealing with physics here, and actually, our reaction may be greater than the action. So,
yeah,
we have
You're
to.
also going to be dealing with a logistics nightmare if you try to mandate a vaccine halfway through a season. Because you get the first dose, and then it's 2 weeks before you can get the second one. And
3 or 4 weeks. Yeah,
and then it's a couple of weeks after that before you actually are considered, vaccinated.
Fully vaccinated. Yeah,
that puts us out through almost the end of the season.
Exactly.
So
right.
you either have to pause the entire season and then pick it up and then push back basketball and push back rest and push everything back, or stop the season, and that just creates a nightmare scenario from a scheduling standpoint.
I agree.
Yeah, so I think what we're dealing with, you get to the whole mandate thing, and what we talked about last week is even if we could get the politics, let's say the government side to agree with each other, and they don't, probably the most polarized we've ever been. But if we got them together, the people have already made up their minds. So no matter what could happen at that upper level, unfortunately, a lot of people have already made up their minds as to what they're going to do. And Jim, I mentioned this last week, and I'll mention it again since you brought it up. Should someone pull out and say want to move to a private school, they're probably going to find in the end that vaccines are probably more accepted there than they would be where they were at. So I don't know if that's. I'm a big believer in public schools myself.
Oh, I am too.
Like
I'm a product. Just both of us are products of public schools.
Well, I made a decision. I had I'll go ahead and say it. I may have told you this story, but when I was 18 years old, 18, 19 years old, my best friend, or one of my best friends, his cousin, he went to good old Bob Jones. He came up through the whole Bob Jones thing, and he was going to Bob Jones University, but he came up to Charlotte to live for a summer to stay with Jimmy. And he got a job at McDonald's. And so it's a Friday afternoon, Friday evening, and we're going to go to the movies. And so we picked him up, and he's sitting there in the car. And I understand, I grew up in the hood. I mean, I understood all the slang and everything that, came to be. Biddleville is the name of the area here in Charlotte. It centers around Johnson C. Smith University. And anyway, he's sitting there, and he was the nicest guy you ever know. And he's like, I just don't understand them. I don't understand them. I'm like, what are you talking about? And I can't understand them. And I didn't know what he was, honestly, I didn't know what he was talking about. I said, well, explain to me what you don't understand. He said, well, today I heard something about freight in a crib. I said, what did they say? They had to get out to catch the freight to get back to the crib? He said, yeah, that's exactly what they said. So, well, that just meant they're going to get the bus and going back home. And what that told me, he'd never been around black people before. And so what that told me then was I was not going to let that happen to my children. And I don't know if I made the right decision, but I think I did, because all my kids have turned out to be, they're all at a minimum of a BS degree. I have 1 doctorate and 2 masters. I think the children have done well. And I think from a societal view, so educational, they got their education, but also they've got their life learned education. So I'm a big believer in public schools because of that integration that can occur. That said, we didn't have charter schools, but if I had kids again, I would probably go charter school, because I can get a little bit of both. I think, if I could get into a charter school. So I'm a fan of charter schools, by the way. I think there's a lot of, I'm not a fan of where our public schools are heading. And that's mainly because of my children were lucky in that they went to Olympic High School. And my first 2 children, my oldest son got 1 year benefit of it, but the other 2 children got several years benefits of it. And that was the grant that the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation gave to Olympic High School, about $750,000. But to get that, CMS had to allow them to configure the school in a certain way. Wasn't good for football coaches, because you had 5 schools, 5 principals. That made it a nightmare for Shuford, of which principal do you deal with. And but it did allow some more focused education. And they did somewhat address the biggest issue, which is student-teacher ratio. That's probably one of the biggest problems with public schools, is that ratio is getting too large for teachers. I do a lot of training myself, teaching. That's one of the things that I do with my business. And I know the challenges of when the more that you have to instruct, the more difficult it becomes. You can't tell a student to go run a lap, That would be great, go run a lap, or whatever punishment you may delve out today for not paying attention. It's a lot easier to have that discipline in a team than it is in a classroom, I think. And that can get really.
We can't make them run during class, but they'll send me an email and want me to do it. But, yeah.
So yeah, I'm a big believer in public schools too. The whole mandate thing, you brought up a good point that if a mandate came in for vaccines, what is that going to do to the disruption of the season? I hate to say this, but I'm a libertarian. So my beliefs are, I don't like government mandating unless there's I can see when there potentially can be situations where to save a society, or for security, or so like George Washington vaccinated his troops against smallpox, and that's probably why they won the war. Could you imagine what would happen if they had not done that?
Well, that's pragmatism. George Washington was a big pragmatist. Same thing with Abraham Lincoln. All the really good leaders were always pragmatic leaders.
Well, that's so. At some point, maybe you have to.
Yeah.
And so certain things supersede. Jim, you mentioned earlier about some people think that it's not this virus is not as spreadable as the flu. Now, statistics is my thing. Data is my thing. I'm an engineer, and those things are my thing. And I jumped into this and into that side of all this real early. Even initial COVID had higher spread rate than the flu. But what we're dealing with now has approximately three to four times the spread rate of the initial version of COVID.
Oh, I agree.
It's called the RO factor, and the RO factor is up around 8 with what we're dealing with. That means one person can spread to 8.
I know this. I don't know the specifics though, but I can tell you this fall has been a lot more difficult to manage than this spring ever was. And when we went through the spring, we were, like, how are we going to get through this with all that we have to do? But I mean, you can just look every week, how many games are being canceled, how many games are being rescheduled. This fall is by far been so much more difficult to manage. And it's because of the increased spread. I don't know if it's because people are in COVID fatigue, where they're just tired of the things that we need to do, or if it's, because the protocols aren't the same as they were this spring. But it's so much more difficult this fall to get through. And I think we're seeing that on a weekly basis.
All of the above, I think. I think it's we got a very high spreadable variant now.
Right.
B, I think because we kind of got some lull in the virus from last year, that people maybe started becoming a little less cautious. So I think personal protocols, et cetera, maybe have changed. I think it's just a whole combination of things as to why we're seeing what we're seeing happening right now.
And Dale, I was a statistics major at Carolina, and what I always look at with this pandemic, I look at trying to find every variable possible when it comes to the significance of how sick someone gets with COVID. Obviously, age is a variable. How much you weigh is a variable, or how overweight you might be. If you have any pre-existing conditions and stuff like that, there's a lot. There's a lot of variables involved in it. Also, are you vaccinated or not? Vaccination, you can be vaccinated. You might have 95% efficacy when it comes to that vaccination. But that vaccination also has a time lag. In 8 months, it may not be nearly as sufficient as it was when you first got it. There's a lot of variables involved in that, and I always tell people, you get your vaccination, you still better wear a mask, because that vaccination is just like using an umbrella. It might be raining and you might stay pretty dry, but if the wind starts blowing in, you're going to get wet. And that's the same thing with this virus. It's not going to protect you from the rain per se. It's not going to, the mask is not always all the safeguards, the vaccines that you have may not protect you 100%, but you're better off having all those safeguards than not having any.
I'm gonna try to draw a football analogy.
Okay.
To the way, and I don't know, this is just popping into my head, and this is coming off my head. But you got a defense, and you got a great defense. That defense is out on the field, and the defense doesn't do anything until there's an offense to go against it. Viruses so your vaccination told your body how to handle a defense. Now, the offense is there. We're in a game, so there's going to be an offense there, and the offense being, the virus. So it comes down to that vaccination as to how well did I'm worried. I shouldn't say worried, but I wonder, my reactions were not, after getting vaccinated, were not equal to what I've heard a lot of other people's were. Now, I definitely, my second shot, put me down a little bit, but it didn't put me down. But you want it to. You want it to, to make you feel bad so that your body's fighting back. So, when people worry, oh, you're still vaccinated, you're vaccinated and you still got it. Vaccination's not. I get your analogy of the umbrella. The thing is as what I tell people, the vaccine is not a shield.
It's not a shield. It's just something
Right.
that covers. You can still have it come in here and come back here. I totally agree with you.
So it's still going to come in, right?
Yeah.
And now, how does your body? One of the things about getting sick is viral load and how much viral load comes in. So, and then of course how your body handles it. I'm a big believer in vaccination. I'm not happy when people don't vaccinate, but that's their choice. The only problem I kind of have with that right now, I'm really struggling with this and this whole personal liberty thing, is a person can pass on to someone else, and then someone can die. You've got a friend that's the firefighter that you shared out yesterday, the GoFundMe. People, somebody passed that on to him, and it came from someone else, and so how much personal liberty or personal freedoms play into your impact on others? A libertarian's view is you can do whatever you want as long as you don't harm someone else. But passing a virus on to someone is harming them, potentially harming them. So I tell you, I have a moral dilemma with this. It's a huge dilemma in my head right now. We have kept viewers, and I've kept you for an hour. My question would be, would you come back again?
Yeah, definitely. I was actually going to tell you, I got a note. My daughter, dinner's here.
Yeah.
Okay.
But definitely, anytime you guys want to have me on, let me know. And
now, Austin, where'd you grow up?
So I was born in the mountains in Hendersonville, and half my family's in Hendersonville, half my family's right across the state line and in Inman, Landrum, Campbell area in South Carolina. But I went to North Mech. I moved here in 93, 94 and in Huntersville, and I went to North Mech, and I still live in Huntersville now. So
was Campagna, was he the head coach back then, or did he already
no,
leave?
sir, it was Scott Sherrill.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. Coach Campagna he had retired a few years before, I believe.
Yeah, he was in the 80s, 70s, 80s, right?
He was the head coach at Albemarle twice. He was the head coach at Charlotte Catholic at one time.
He was the head coach at Charlotte Catholic. That's right.
Actually, Albemarle too for about 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, I think he was at North for early 90s, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't remember the A.L. Brown stint for some reason. Why is that not sticking in my head?
He actually left Albemarle. He coached Albemarle twice, and actually coached North Mech twice too. He was at Catholic until '69. Coached Albemarle for 2 or 3 years, and then he was the head coach. I think 2 or 3 years, either succeeded or preceded Lope Linder, the old South Throw Land coach, and then he went to North Mech. Left North Mech for either 1 or 2 years to coach at Albemarle. Then he went back to North Mech. I had an undefeated season at North Mech, I believe, in '79. Great coach.
Mm-hmm.
Gary,
one of our Talking Preps guys, is a North Mech guy. Do you know Gary by chance?
I've in passing, but not really in depth or anything.
He's a nice guy, super nice guy.
I believe, wasn't he the head coach? I'm thinking he was the head coach at Vance when
women's basketball.
Yeah, he was at Vance. Yeah, he was one of the coaches at Vance when I was in high school at North. Yeah.
Yeah, he coached football at Vance, and he was a girls' basketball coach at Vance. Very good basketball coach. So you're going to be at home this Friday night. I hope you and your family have a great evening. I'm sure your daughters will be happy to have you home.
Yeah, well, I think we're going to plan go out back, put a little fire, watch a movie out back on a big projector screen, and have a nice little family night.
But more important, enjoy that dinner that's waiting for you.
Yes,
exactly.
Yes. Not sure what it is, but we'll see when I get in there.
Well, good. I'm gonna have you back. I like hearing what you have to say.
Definitely, anytime. I appreciate y'all having me on.
Yeah, so maybe we can talk more X and O kind of stuff. One of the things I would like to do is do some education for people about offenses and positional play, etc. So, okay,
definitely, I'm definitely up for that.
Cool. All right, I need all the help I can with that. So.
I did a thing with Jeff back a couple of years ago, and I was teaching him how to play defensive line. So I had him, going through all the little things that a defensive lineman, goes through. Because Jeff didn't play. I don't know if you know Jeff Miller, but what a super knowledgeable guy. He's like a Rain Man kind of guy. He loves football, but he didn't play. So, Jim, that's one of the other things I'm thinking about doing is start doing some little positional segments of things that I think I can coach and maybe help people understand what a defensive end is supposed to do. And I played defensive end in youth ball, and I played in a 6-man front, so a stand-up defensive end. And my rules were 2 yards and square. And so we set edge so that we could try to push plays back into, feed them back into the linebackers. And if someone wanted to run at you, they had to run wider. So they had to go back further to get around, which, of course, allows you to string plays out. So I was trying to teach Jeff all of that, some of the rules so he could understand. So maybe we can do some of that. And we got a real coach here. My coach.
We can do that. I got a few things on YouTube and that I've done with some different coaches, so I have no problem getting out here and discuss anything you want to talk about.
Sounds great.
Yeah, and I want to come up and see you guys play. So you need to keep me abreast of your when you're able to get back playing. I hate that. It tears me up to hear you're going to play 3 games in that short a period of time, and I just hope the kids, are able to recover and we don't have injuries. But I fully understand the necessity of that situation.
We're going to be smart with it. We're going to make sure we're being smart with minutes, and if there's any chance that we can get some of those guys who don't come off the field a lot off the field, or try to limit their involvement as much as we can for a full game. We've just got to be smart. We got to manage it and make sure that we can get through the season healthy. But yeah, we'll have you up there. We're going to have a big barbecue one night at a game, so I might try to get you up there for that one.
Yes. Yeah. Well, barbecue is my thing. So
hey, well, that's why as soon as I thought about it, I was like, hey, we got to get you up for that game.
Oh, heck yeah. All right. We're going to let you run and eat. I'm going to see if Jim's got anything more he wants to talk about. Of course, you're welcome. I'm not trying to run you off, but I know your daughters. She passed you a note and said, "Daddy, food's ready."
You better.
I saw little fingers come under the door, so I was like, "Yeah, I gotta see what's going on." So, but I appreciate y'all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't really have much to say, Dale.
Okay.
I think it's. I think we got a lot of uncertainty the next 3 weeks or so. I'll say probably until about the first week of October, we're going to have a lot of uncertainty about what path we're going to go. Are we going to turn the curve, or are we just going to go even further down that hill?
Mm-hmm.
So.
I promise to have something on that green screen. I'm going to figure out how to do it. It's not evident. It's not as evident as it is in StreamYard. I did pay for this service. This is $19 a month.
Sure.
So I'm right now, Jim. I don't know if you're aware, but I'm streaming right now. We're live on YouTube, We're live on Twitter. We're live on Facebook. We're live on Twitch. And
what's Twitch? I never heard of that before.
oh man, that's where all the gamers. That's like probably one of the biggest streaming services or streaming platforms that there is. If you ever happen to see the one that comes up on Facebook is a lot is a guy that's driving an 18-wheeler. So he's back up on his green screen. It's a game. And so gamers use Twitch. But there's a whole lot of other things on Twitch. So we're on Twitch. We're on those 4. I thought I had 5, but I can't think. What else would I stream to? I think that's it.
Facebook. Yeah. Okay.
Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch, and maybe so I can send this out to a lot of different platforms. For some reason, we've held solid somewhere around 3 viewers, which isn't a lot, but it's, hopefully people will rewatch this, because this is being recorded, so they will be able to rewatch it. But anyway, I don't have much more to say either, Jim. Other than I will talk with my daughter about getting your data that you have. Let's try to work and get that history online, searchable. I think that's it, Jim.
All right, Dale. That sounds good. I'm gonna grab me something to eat because I am starving right now.
I hear you.
Something about being a 50-year-old man, it just makes you feel like you're pregnant all the time. You're just hungry.
So I got the great sandwich for you, man. You saw it today, right?
Oh, nasty. That is nasty.
You don't like these?
No,
so do you like
no.
do you like peanut butter?
Okay.
Do you like bananas?
Okay.
And do you like mayonnaise?
Not really.
You don't put mayonnaise on sandwiches?
No. Very, very rarely.
Not even a little bit, huh?
I'm more mustard.
The piece de la resistance, the end piece of the bread.
That is awful. That is just nasty. It's
so I did not do a good job, period, on the video, even the retake of it.
Well, you did a great job. It made my stomach turn.
I didn't have my green screen right, so the background was kind of flickery. I've got the green screen right now. I could put that image up on there beautifully. So I did it. I ate the sandwich, and then I went back and looked at it. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is horrible. I got to redo it. So I had to actually reshoot it. And I'm like, I can't eat another whole sandwich. That's too many calories. So I went back into the bread, and it was a fresh pack of bread. And there at the end, I had to go. You probably lay it down and go past it and get your bread, and then you put it back up, and not me, man. I'm like, I said, oh, that's perfect. I love the end piece.
To me, I eat wheat breads. I like wheats. And my favorite sandwich is actually, it's not really sandwich, it's more of a toast. I'll toast up I can't eat loaf bread unless it's toasted. Mm-hmm. And my favorite thing to put on loaf bread is avocados. I love,
I like avocado.
Towing up, but apples, but salt and pepper, and then put some type of, I forgot some type of, not garlic, but some type of powder in there, and it just tastes so delicious. That's my favorite thing to do. I'll eat a BLT as long as it's toasted, but I've never been much of a sandwich person.
I love BLTs. Now, as you're talking, I'm thinking, there's another tomato in there. I could go slice that tomato up, and I love tomato sandwiches. Oh, man.
Now, the best one's a bacon, lettuce, and green tomato sandwich.
Yeah, fried green tomatoes. There's a place over here in Belmont that makes a great fried green. So they do a fried green tomato, BLT. So it's a fried green tomato, lettuce, and bacon, lettuce, and fried green tomato. It is awesome. I like fried green tomatoes.
God, it's just,
Yeah, I've got I don't know what I'm gonna eat, but man, that's green. All right, I'll let you go. I'm probably gonna do another video though. One of the things I'm gonna do, Jim, is I used to do a confession session where I get things off my chest, things that happen that I'm not a big fan of. So I got one or two, so I'm gonna probably film those tonight.
got two things I was going to tell you. The best two wearing a mask are two really nice benefits about wearing a mask. If you go to Walmart, you can always smirk behind your mask. You can see somebody that's wearing something really crazy. Today I went and saw this guy wearing a tank top, a pink tank top, and he was wearing Bermuda shorts and had brown socks all the way up to his knees, and he was wearing sneakers. And I was just smirking, and he couldn't tell it or anything like that.
That's good.
And the second thing is, ever so often there's somebody at Walmart that you really do not want to talk to because you don't have the patience to talk to them about it. And, there's always that person from church that wants to bring you down and say something. And I saw this guy, and I was like, you know what? I cannot stand seeing this person. I don't want to talk to him. I want to get in and out because I got to run back home in 10 minutes so I can catch up with Dale. And the mask saved me. If it wasn't for that, the little guy, little munchkin, would have followed me around the store and talked to me while I got my stuff. And some people,
did you do something like underneath? So it's like so it's not coming out. It's like the mask. I got.
No, it's more like no hablo inglés, no hablo inglés. And the other thing, some people though, they cannot understand social cues. Like if you're trying to get away from talking to somebody, you just kind of like walk them back a little bit, and then when they walk forward and follow you,
yeah.
And there's some dudes that just do that, and I'm like, oh. But anyway, the mask part, those are the two benefits for wearing a mask.
Well, that's a nice green screen. It's bugging the heck out of me. I hate that, but I'll get it fixed.
Oh, hold a second. I just got a call here. So the Jolly Green Giant called. He wants the screen back.
He wants the screen back. Avocado.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Dale, it's good talking to you, my man.
Yep. Have a good evening.
All right.